The morning began for Kennedy in the city of Fort Worth, Texas. The president and his wife had spent the night at a local hotel where they were accommodated after a long day of meetings and speeches. Kennedy's visit to Texas was part of a political tour across the southern states of the U.S. It carried significant importance for his candidacy, as elections were just a year away, and Kennedy was striving to gain support in regions where his position was weak. His personal charisma played a vital role during these speeches. Kennedy had a gift for capturing attention and charming the public. His wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, was also actively involved. At the time, she was extremely popular among Americans. Kennedy woke up in his hotel room with a scheduled public appearance ahead of him. He listened to a short briefing on safety concerns and the political climate in Texas. He was reminded that political tensions in the state had escalated and some local leaders were openly hostile toward him. Nevertheless, he continued his preparations. The morning started with a light rain, which raised concerns about the upcoming motorcade through Dallas, especially since they planned to use an open limousine. However, the weather did not affect Kennedy's mood. He was energetic and ready for his upcoming speech. A small crowd of locals had gathered outside the hotel, hoping to catch a glimpse of the president and his wife. The light rain didn't bother them, and the atmosphere remained celebratory. An important detail was that this was John F. Kennedy's first visit to Fort Worth, which stirred great excitement among the local population. The presidential motorcade was already prepared for departure, but Kennedy decided to greet the crowd personally. He stepped out of the hotel without an umbrella, a decision that only enhanced his public image. Kennedy always sought to be close to the people. His wife stood nearby, wearing a pink Chanel suit that would later become a symbol of tragedy. Kennedy gave a short speech to the locals, thanking the city for its warm welcome and expressing optimism about his re-election campaign. He spoke about America's future and the importance of every citizen's support. His wife, usually reserved during political events, appeared open and friendly this time. The atmosphere was festive, despite the early hour and light drizzle. After the gathering, Kennedy returned to the hotel for breakfast and to prepare for the flight to Dallas. There, he managed to meet with several local leaders and discuss details of his visit to the city. Everyone present had a sense that this day would become a crucial step in his political journey. Later, Kennedy and his wife headed to the Fort Worth airport. The presidential motorcade arrived at the airfield, and after boarding the plane, they were joined by Vice President Lyndon Johnson and his wife. The flight from Fort Worth to Dallas was expected to take just 13 minutes. During the flight, the president joked with his team and discussed details of his upcoming speech. However, he remained concerned about the tension in the state. He was aware that Texas was riddled with political disagreements and that not all leaders were on his side. This was especially true of conservative groups who criticized his domestic and foreign policies, particularly in relation to civil rights and his approach to the Soviet Union. While in the air, the weather improved. The morning rain had stopped and the skies began to clear. This change in weather turned out to be fateful. The organizers decided that the limousine taking the president through the streets of Dallas would remain open. The motorcade was a chance for Kennedy to show his openness to the people, potentially boosting his approval ratings. The plane landed safely at Love Field Airport. As soon as the presidential aircraft came to a stop, a crowd of local residents had gathered around. Many of them held signs and flowers showing their support. Kennedy, along with his wife, stepped out of the plane. They slowed their pace to greet the people and express their gratitude. By this time, the president was in excellent spirits, and his wife, despite some concerns about security, continued to radiate a positive attitude. Among those supporting the president were public officials, including Texas Governor John Connally and his wife Nellie. They were scheduled to accompany the president on the trip. Connally was a significant political figure, and his support had a considerable impact on Kennedy's visit. The motorcade was ready to head to downtown Dallas. Police motorcycle escorts rode alongside the motorcade, maintaining order and ensuring the security of the route. Along the streets, thousands of people had lined up after hearing about the president's visit. The motorcade began moving through the city's main roads, and the crowd continued to grow. The public greeted the president with enthusiasm. He smiled broadly, frequently turning to the people and waving. Jacqueline, sitting at his side, also smiled and greeted the citizens. The route passed through several of Dallas's major streets, including Main Street, one of the city's key thoroughfares. City authorities had carefully prepared for the visit. The streets were decorated, and police officers patrolled the entire route. The motorcade continued its slow progression through downtown. As it crossed the central streets, the crowd thickened, and the convoy slowed down. The president didn't want to rush. Each time the crowd approached the limousine, security allowed people to come slightly closer. At that moment, it was clear the trip was going well. People were happy, and Kennedy responded with a sincere smile. Everything that day was going according to plan. However, a hint of tension still lingered in the air. A day before Kennedy's arrival, anti-Kennedy flyers had circulated. That morning, newspapers published articles criticizing his policies. Still, as the motorcade rolled slowly through the streets, there was no sense of imminent danger. The presidential vehicle turned onto Houston Street and began heading toward Dealey Plaza. The atmosphere remained festive. The crowd continued to cheer the president, who appeared to be in an excellent mood. Beside him, Jackie looked carefree, admiring the city and engaging with the people. But that turn would be Kennedy's last. As the motorcade passed by the Texas School Book Depository, located on the northern side of the plaza, Kennedy and his wife were seated in the back of the limousine, along with Governor Connally and his wife. Then came the first gunshot. Many in the crowd didn't immediately understand what had happened. For a few seconds, there was confusion. Some thought it might have been a mechanical issue or background noise, but when the president clutched his throat, it became clear this was gunfire. The second shot hit Governor Connally, piercing his chest and arm. The third shot was the final one, striking Kennedy directly in the head. His wife, sitting right beside him, was in a state of shock. At first, she tried to hold her husband's head, but then, seeing the blood and horrific wounds, she screamed in terror. Immediately after the third shot, the limousine's driver, William Greer, accelerated sharply, heading toward a nearby hospital. Secret Service agent Clint Hill jumped onto the rear of the vehicle to protect the president and First Lady. He tried to shield them with his own body. The crowd couldn't believe what had just happened. Many dropped to the ground trying to take cover and figure out where the shots had come from. The police reacted immediately and began searching for the shooter. The evacuation was urgent, so paramedics at the scene provided first aid right inside the vehicle as the limousine raced toward the hospital. Upon arrival at the hospital, Kennedy was rushed into the operating room. Doctors began intensive resuscitation efforts trying to save his life. Despite all their attempts, the president's condition was critical. He had sustained massive injuries, including severe wounds to the head and neck. Their efforts were unsuccessful, and the doctors ultimately declared him dead. A decision was made to issue an official statement. A group of doctors and government representatives gathered at the hospital, standing before a crowd of journalists and officials. The death declaration was read by Dr. Malcolm Perry, one of the physicians who had tried to resuscitate the president. Dr. Perry stepped forward and announced to the public that the president was dead. For about an hour, police officers examined the surrounding area. Attention quickly turned to the Texas School Book Depository. Acting on reports, the police conducted a thorough search. Eventually, on the 6th floor of the building, they found a rifle, a Carcano Bolt action rifle of Italian origin. It had been left propped up near a window, the spot from which the shots were fired. Spent shell casings were also recovered from the scene. That same day, police identified the rifle as belonging to Lee Harvey Oswald. Investigators, relying on various pieces of evidence and witness statements, launched a search for the suspect. Before long, Oswald was spotted in a Dallas suburb. He attempted to flee and ran into the Texas Theater. Police soon arrived and tried to arrest him, but Oswald resisted. During the scuffle, he pulled out a gun and fatally shot a police officer. Following the incident, Oswald was arrested on the spot and taken to the police station. During interrogation and further investigation, he was formally charged with the murder of President Kennedy and the police officer. On November 24th, police were escorting Oswald to a vehicle that would transport him to the county jail. Suddenly, a man stepped out from the crowd, Jack Ruby, a local nightclub owner, and shot Oswald at point-blank range. The bullet struck him in the abdomen. He was rushed unconscious to the same hospital where President John F. Kennedy had died 2 days earlier. At 1:07 p.m., Oswald's heart stopped, and he was pronounced dead. This is how the life of the 35th President of the United States came to an end. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more interesting stories, please support me with a like and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.